Hey guys, thanks for stopping by to watch another video here at alliseeisW, where we talk about stocks, Bitcoin, and finance, where the goal here is to gain on positive proceeds and lead with an altruistic mindset. In today's video, I like to cover all three commodities, really talk about the price of Bitcoin, MicroStrategy, and cover the big three Bitcoin miners, really to give you a perspective on where I see these prices will be landing up in the year 2025. Is now a time to sell, buy, or hold Bitcoin MSTR or even Bitcoin miners? I'll share with you just updates on where we are and what my overall assessment is with these three commodities. Now, if you're new to this channel, I would really appreciate you hitting the like, subscribing. Most of my viewers, about 20 to 30%, are subscribers, and the rest are just viewers. So I would really appreciate showing some love, subscribing so that I can continue to add value. So here we're looking at the price of Bitcoin. So what we're looking at here, as I zoom in here, the red line is the support line. I have that drawn at 88,000. I think this is where we can see Bitcoin dropping down, but I think where we're seeing the price of Bitcoin today, it has that potential to really just start breaking through, getting back up to that 100 threshold. We did see back in December 17, the price of Bitcoin reached this all-time high of 108,000. It's been correcting over the course of the last couple weeks here, but there's been just so much analyst forecasts. In fact, there's H.C. Hainwright actually forecasting that the price of Bitcoin in 2025 will break through 225,000. However, I have the resistance point set at 120,000 here. That may be on a conservative level. We know Bitcoin is still consolidating. It hasn't really breached and topped its bullish cycle yet. So I think there's more to come with the price of Bitcoin getting beyond that all-time high that we saw in the recent weeks. However, we don't know if, the shorters will continue to take advantage and try to pull down the price. But I think where we are heading into the new year, 2025, today we saw hope in Bitcoin, and I think that there's a lot more sentiment going on. Let's take a look at this article here in that H.C. Wainwright is forecasting that Bitcoin will hit 225,000 this year alone. And what is driving all of that? There's just been optimism around the combination of regulatory shifts, institutional adoption. There's global game theory going on right now. US is trying to hodl as much Bitcoin as possible. Second place is like China, but you hear a lot of different countries in the Europe countries, even, South America countries trying to acquire Bitcoin. So it's a global race right now. It's really a paradigm shift, and it's a digital property that cannot be humanly engineered. So I think Bitcoin is here to stay. In addition to that, one of the critical driver is the maturation of the US regulatory landscape. We know that we have a pro crypto administration with Trump entering the White House in like 18 days. So I think that we're going to start seeing potential executive actions with different bills that will come out to support the financial innovation and technology for the 21st century. So I think with all of the stimulants that are coming into play, one with the inauguration that's coming up, also back with the introduction of like ETFs at the beginning of 2024, like big time companies like Vanguard, BlackRock, they've created ETFs and have accumulated a number of assets contributing to increased Bitcoin demand. And that's why HC Wainwright is really upping their game, forecasting, Bitcoin to go beyond that 200,000 threshold in this year alone. We do also recognize that, the total market cap of Bitcoin to reach 4.5 trillion, accounting for roughly 25% of the total market cap of gold. That's just showing the dominance of Bitcoin in that it's the king of all commodities. Think of it as like, digital property. Overall, with Bitcoin's halving event in April, that's amplified scarcity and, supply and demand is really what's driving this here. So I think Bitcoin has really made a statement, and it's interesting to see this price target of 225,000 because if or when that price is achieved with this bullish forecast, then I think companies like MSTR stock, Bitcoin miners can really do well. But let's just take a look at, another forecast here from Plan B on X. I mean, based on his scenario mapping, we're currently in that bull market cycle. But when you look at the prior bull market cycles, you see a lot of red dots. So we've only got a few red dots so far. And I think that we're going to see more red dots coming up. Prior to that was the accumulation phase. So we recently just got through the accumulation phase, but we're forecasted to see that red dots continue to go up just with the classic pump, we saw that in October, Bitcoin 70K. November, Trump gets elected. That really ends the Democratic administration for now. And then we have the war on crypto. Bitcoin reaches 100K. December, massive ETF inflows. And then there's, talks about Bitcoin getting up to 150K. So now, as we enter the new year, January, I mean, there's crypto people companies returning to US. I think with this forecast, Bitcoin breaks 200K. That's similar to, HC Wainwright here. February, it's forecasted that power law crew sells. There's going to be a Bitcoin, correcting to that 150K, but it's gone up by, March, Bitcoin legal tender, Argentina, Dubai. At that point, Bitcoin is at 300K. April, Trump, US starts building that strategic Bitcoin reserve. At that point, Bitcoin will appreciate to 400K. And then you have, Bitcoin of 500K, joining that global rat race with global game theory going on. And then there's several starts of AI using Bitcoin to autonomously trade. And at that point, Bitcoin 600K. So come July, December, there's going to be that FOMO effect. But you see here, 2026, Bitcoin back to 500K, 2027 bear market. So that's based on the overall cycle. So when you factor in the next 4 years, basically from this analysis here, Bitcoin will get up to about 500K from like this time frame up through like 2028 is basically what Plan B is suggesting here. So interesting details here, but I think that because we see so little reds, we're bound to see much more reds to come. I think RSI hasn't really kicked in yet, so we're at a good state. I think there's free cash flow coming in right now into Bitcoin. Let's take a look at MicroStrategy. So we do recognize that MSTR, in November, it went up to that high point of 550K. It had like an all-time high 800% gain, but as we ended the year, it reached 400% in gains for performance for the year 2024. I think today there was hope, and I was forecasting, yesterday that if Bitcoin can break through that 96,500, then we're going to see some positive upward trajectory with MicroStrategy. Early in the day, the market, we did see some potential stimulant going on, but towards the end of the day, we saw a lot more fluctuation. But it's great to see MicroStrategy end today with the 3% gain. Most of you are wondering, is there going to be continued consolidation? Are we at that low point of MSTR? I mean, what I'm thinking is that MSTR, depending on how soon Bitcoin can run, if it can start running early in January, February, around the inauguration time frame, then we can see that V shape back up. It can retest, 400, mid 500, get into that new zone, $600, depending on Bitcoin reaching its all-time high. But let's say if we still see continued consolidation, the shorters are really going to continue taking advantage, and it may, just start getting into that zone of like mid 250s, and lowest I can see is like 220, although I think that's unlikely, but that's my forecast. And just with Bernstein's forecast in December. The price target for MSTR is $600. Let's take a look at treasuries out of 150 companies. We see here in orange ETFs that was created in 2024. So that's created a huge inflow of cash to, acquire Bitcoin. You look at private companies in purple. We know companies like Tesla, MSTR. There's a number of small companies trying to HODL acquire Bitcoin along with miners as well, similar to Mara and Riot. But the bulk here is like through the ETFs and public companies as well. So it's interesting to see this details here, but I just wanted to give you an overall outlook of where certain companies are. So you see MSTR here. I mean, their overall cost basis with the amount of Bitcoin they have is 446,000, 20, 7,900 overall current value. So basically what they've paid compared to the current value right now, they're at like a 40% gain on what they have with Bitcoin. Can you imagine how much that would be once, let's say, using H.C. Hainwright's analysis, 225,000, their income statement for Q4 we know alone is going to like go up by a factor of 30%. So Q4 data is going to look very promising along with Mara's Q4 data, especially before the additional acquiring of Bitcoins. Everything that was held with Mara, Riot, for example, having 11,000 before hodling more, factoring in that additional 30% of the Bitcoin price appreciation, that's going to be like $350 million as positive return on cash flow based on revenue alone. So income statements for these top miners, especially the pure miner plays like CleanSpark, Riot, Mara, it's going to really show promising numbers along with MSTR. And I think there's going to be a lot of movement with these companies here. Now, let's take a look at overall just Mara's performance along with you know, Riot and platforms. We see here overall, just the overall year to date. I mean, down 37%, Riot, Mara, CleanSpark 18%. It was nice to see some, positive single digit gains today across the different miners. But I think that because we're in a new year, I think there's going to be a lot of circulation into companies like Mara, Riot, and CleanSpark, and just looking at it from a 1-1 range here, CleanSpark dropped by about 36%, Mara 34%, Riot minus 16%. I really do think that because these miners, pure miners, they haven't really got that benefit from the HODL, but I think the HODL variable is really going to kick in when we have those Q4 data release, which will be sometime in February. It's going to be like Mara announcing their results, and that's going to benefit companies like Riot and CleanSpark. Vice versa, once CleanSpark announces, these companies are really going to benefit here, along with just so much going on with the inauguration. We're going to get more information about the US Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. So I think that there's a lot of potential, especially with the miners, as well as even MSTR. Bitcoin, I think of Bitcoin more of a stable play. It's gone up by about over 100%, what we've seen over the course of 2024. MSTR, it's gone up 400%. Prior to that, 2023, it's gone up by about 300%. Miners, it tends to go the opposite in terms of performance. And because 2024 was an underperforming year, I think 2025, it's highly likely that the miners are really going to outperform. So let me know what your thoughts are based on your assessment. I'd love to hear what your comments, questions are. Thank you, guys.